Do you believe that we have free will?
I do, and I do think that the universe connects us in ways. I would think most people miss it. I think most people miss the connections that happen in life, but I think you can make your choices.
Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Tim Williamson in the house. What's up?
So welcome.
How are you?
I love the black and gold. It feels like we're in the Saints feel right here.
It does. It feels good. I know you're usually used to running your own podcast, which is why you're all like, welcome. But you're welcome. You're welcome here. So Tim Williamson, we had the pleasure of meeting you. You came in, did a podcast with Brian Hong.
Yep.
We got to talk.
By the way, I learned about his whole biohacking routine, which is completely crazy.
Wild.
Okay.
Wild.
Yeah. Okay.
If you guys haven't seen Brian's podcast, check it out. He's a very unique individual. But that's the thing. People that are around you are unique individuals. Every time I run into you at the New Society that you run over there on St. Charles, it's such an eclectic group of people, movers and shakers, early adopters, making things happen, and you're just like at the center of it, connecting people and finding out where that new wave of innovation is. So I want to know just give me a 2-minute backstory on how you got to where you got, and then we can get into all of that stuff that's happening right now.
Well, the 2-minute backstory, I would say, I guess it started in a bar in New Orleans called Audubon Tavern, AT2s, back in college. If you really want to know, where I think what I saw is, I got to, if you're not from here, it was one of the most popular bars growing up.
Been here since 2005.
Yeah, this is way back. This is 87. And whoever created it, the guy who created it found a guy from an SAE, a guy from KA, a guy from Deke, a guy from Sigma Nu, and all these guys hated each other, but he put them behind the bar, gave them $2 an hour, but allowed us to drink free drinks. And so then we brought in our friends, and then our friends brought in the girls. And the fact the girls came, everyone came.
Yeah.
And magic happened. It was the most popular bar. But the idea of how do you build community and how do you connect people? And when you connect people, magic happens. And so over the last 30 years, I left here, did my 13-year walkabout in New York, Boston, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. Started on Wall Street, did quite well, and then became an entrepreneur within the video internet business in Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and came back home in '98 to start the first digital news studio in New Orleans, trying to explain to New Orleans that the future of news was going to be delivered digitally. And this was in 96, 97, and trying to explain that was a big, hard thing.
Yeah.
And that led a bunch of us back to a bar, the Loa Bar. A couple of us who were from here, moved away, came back. We're starting the first internet businesses. We're all from different high schools. We did not like each other. We fought all the time, but we came to the conclusion the problem wasn't the internet. The problem was New Orleans. New Orleans is not a forward. I love New Orleans, but we're not a forward-thinking city. We're not out in front. And we said we need to foster this innovation, new thinking. And so over a bunch of drinks, we decided to create something called the Idea Village. And the Idea Village was started in 2000. I ran that for 16 years, which really was building a village or a network or a community that would identify, support, retain entrepreneurial talent. And there's a lot of different things we did with that. But the goal was one day you would have this community that would create wealth, and they would reinvest that wealth back into the community. And that's how the New Society was catalyzed. In 2020, after the exits, about $2.8 billion of exits that came out of the ecosystem, myself and a couple of other groups said it's time to double down. So we took down the old Eiffel building on St. Charles Avenue, which is the craziest real estate in the city, in my personal opinion. And we wanted that to be the hub of this ecosystem. And secondarily, how do we as a community look forward? How do we go out front and figure out what's next? So you're saying I'm around crazy people, but if you come up with crazy ideas, it seems to attract the crazy people.
I totally believe in like vibrational thought process. What are your thoughts on like high vibrations and, you know, that attracting people? What are your thoughts on that?
I think one of the books that influenced me the most is a book called The Celestine Prophecy. Have you read The Celestine Prophecy?
I haven't. I need to read it.
Exactly what you're talking about. It's about, everyone has this energy. Right. And when you meet somebody, there's a reason why we're supposed to meet. And the energy forces bring us together. And there's a reason why we should meet. It may be a 1-minute meeting, a 3-minute meeting, a 5-year relationship, or for life. But energy brings us together. And there's a reason we're supposed to share information from each other. So whether it's vibrations or energy, I actually do believe that human beings are supposed to connect, and somehow there's some way that we connect. You got to have your eyes wide open to figure out why are we together and what are we supposed to learn. And that's when the magic happens, when you're listening and you're trying to connect.
How do you slow down? Because you seem to be a very fast-moving guy, lots of ideas, right? How do you slow down enough to pay attention to those signs?
I do what you do. You ask questions.
Right.
I think you don't talk. You just ask questions. And I love to ask questions, but I'm interested in what other people are thinking. I'm less interested in what I'm thinking. So I think doing what you're doing, I'm uncomfortable in this position, but I think one is being sincerely interested in the other human being and interested in what they're doing, but asking questions that they might not be thinking about. I think that's a way.
Can you tell me a story of a time, and you probably have many, but tell me a story of a time where you met somebody and then you reflected on how you met that person and what things had to have happened for you to meet that person in order for you guys to have like created this incredible thing.
An easy one is my wife, I think, Jenny. We both are from New Orleans. We both grew up in New Orleans. We did not know each other growing up. Never met each other. And
where'd you go to school?
Went to Trinity, Newman, and Tulane. So we did the whole triple play, local. But we met when I was through a friend who asked me to meet her at a party, and she asked Jenny to meet at a party. And so we were both at this party, and I was late because I went to another event, and I actually came through the back door, and I met her towards the end. And it was, the chances of us actually meeting was very serendipitous. And then we ended up going over to our friend's house, and I think we had our first kiss, and that was like this nice thing. And then to answer your question, we were driving home, and I asked her for her number. She goes, ask Tiffany, I'm not going to give you my number. I was like, what are you talking about? So we're driving home probably at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we got to the red light on Palmetto where Costco is, that little red light. And the fact there was a red light, we both stopped, and I pulled down my window. I was like, what's your number? And she yelled out her number. So I called. We're driving down the street, and I said, do you like wine? She goes, yeah. Well, I'm not drinking scotch. So I said, have you ever heard of Secret Wine Spot? And she goes, no. I said, I'll pick you up at 2 o'clock. So if it wasn't for that light at Costco at 2 o'clock in the morning, we've been happily married for 18 years and beautiful daughters. So it's this chance meetings of meeting at the party, being connected, and then somehow that light at Costco was nice.
Do you ever watch Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
No.
His podcast.
No.
So he had a guy, physicist, on that talked about the illusion of free will, right? And they were discussing, do you believe that we have free will? So I'll start with that. Do you believe that we have free will?
I do, and I do think that the universe connects us in ways. I would think most people miss it. I think most people miss the connections that happen in life, but I think you can make your choices. Do you?
I did, and I still do, but they were.
Wait, I did and I do. Wait,
well, so I did. Before I watched this, I was like, oh yeah, we're absolutely we have free will. Yeah. Then I watched this podcast, And basically he was saying that like because of personality types and just because, to your point, right? Like we're all on autopilot. We're all operating in the way that we know how to operate, right? Yeah. Like I'm always going to come up with 30,000 ideas a second, yeah. Right? Like I'm a little ADD, I'm a little spacey. That's just the way I am, right? And he brought up the point where there was a guy that had shot people, and he wrote a letter after, I think he killed himself or before the event. And he said, please study my brain, yeah, because I can't help doing this, right? Like I have to go and do this. And then they found that there was a tumor, yep, pressing on that part of the brain or whatever. And so just made me starting to think about like free will and like, do we have free will? Like because of our personality types and because we're on autopilot so much of the day, unless somebody goes, hey, or this conversation right here, right? Like it's stopping me, which is why I love podcasting, because it stops me. And now because we're having this interaction, I'm learning and I'm having a different type of moment than I would normally have because I'm always on autopilot.
But isn't that free will though? You have
you're right.
But you have the ability to stop, listen. You've chosen that.
I've chosen that. But did I choose that because of the way my brain is wired?
Well, I think one step back, I think as we're getting older, I think we all realize everyone's brain is wired differently.
Right.
I think the big aha is no one's brain thinks the same. I don't know if I knew that growing up. I think, oh, of course
everybody thought like me. Yes, I totally.
And as the older you get, like no one thinks like me, and that's which to me is interesting. Like, how do you think?
Right.
I think that is sort of that back to the question asking of getting to know how people think, because everyone thinks differently. They hear differently. I'll tell you a funny story. The person, one of the girls who I work with, Rachel. We have two completely different brains. I'm more like you, an entrepreneurial. She's an artist, and she would get frustrated with me and like, I don't get what you're saying. She ended up creating a Tim bot, an AI bot, and she uploaded a personality profile. She feeds it, and when I say something, she would immediately go back to about here's what Tim said. What does he mean? And come back, and then she says, I need to ask Tim something, and she puts it in and says, here's what you should say to Tim. Brilliant. And the idea that she's recognized that we think differently, and I need a way to understand how Tim thinks. And I think if we all had bots of people just to say, what did you say? What did you think? I think if we first recognize that we all think differently, I think that's a great life lesson. Once you know that, then
things are easy.
Things are easy.
Things are easy, right? Like, Wilson over here that I've, tried several times to force into things that I feel like is going to be good for him. But at the end of the day, he is going to do what he does.
He needs a bot. One of your bots.
He needs a bot. Yes, exactly.
If you had a bot for him. Yeah. Well, back to saying of human connections, if you are truly interested in other people's brains, then meeting people's a wonderful journey. If you're trying to sell them your thing or make people believe you, that's got to be frustrating.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's got to wear you out.
And it is like, it's just this, I read this book. It's called The 6 Types of Working Genius by Pat Lencioni. And he talks about WIDGET is the acronym. And he's like, people have 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses, right? You have people that have wonder, like they're always questioning how things are working. Then you have idea people that are, coming up with 1,000 ideas. Then you have discernment people that can discern whether or not these ideas are good. Yep. Then you have the galvanizers that can motivate people and move. Then you have enablement, people that can support, and then tenacity, people that need to see the project get done. So I'm like ideation and galvanizing, right? Like I'm all like, I have the ideas, and now I need to motivate people in order to get it done.
So you drive people bananas.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
You walk into the office and you have another idea, and they're like, all they're hearing is, I got to do this stuff. And they're going to say, what do you want me to do? That one or that one? And then as you're about to start this, you got another idea, right? You drive people bananas.
Yes, I do.
Do they tell you that?
Oh, 100%. But I leave it.
Do you know it though, or are you?
Oh, I know it. I know it. Yeah, and I apologize too. I'm very big on the apologizing for the craziness.
So we were talking about something, and I had this about this season kickoff of what we're doing, which I can talk about. But as I'm talking, one of the girls was like, "How many forks do we need?" I was like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea. Who cares?" She goes, "I care about. We don't have enough forks. What you doing?" So we're in two different levels of thinking, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're thinking about the forks? This has to be the worst conversation in the world, because I'm talking about we're gonna have people, we're gonna do this, we got a band. Hey, maybe we should bring in the 6'10" stompers." She's worrying about forks. So you can see how the conversation just breaks down.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He's probably the fork guy. Like, how? You're not the. Who's the fork?
No, that Melanie's the fork. Melanie's absolutely the fork person, because it's like I'll have the idea and she's like, "You're not thinking about this and this and this and this." I'm like,
"That's why you're here."
You're right. I'm not.
So
at all.
Isn't that free will though? Back to your question, you said, "Isn't everyone have their own free will to do what you want?" But how do you choose to pursue it?
I mean, that is a deep and complicated answer to a philosophical question that I am not prepared to answer right now. I just need to marinate on that for a second. I mean, that is just, do we have free will? I mean, there's so much nuance, right? Like,
so the other side is,
did I get sleep? Did I eat?
And the other side is, then we're controlled by something. I mean,
and that's true too. Yeah. Well, and are we controlled by something? Are we controlled by the universe and God and the infinite? Yeah. Does it matter? What is the purpose? Like, am I going to walk out of here at 6, or am I going to walk out of here at 8? Or
so I got a question for you, and this is your podcast session. Do you go Jazz Fest?
Yeah.
Do you have a schedule, or do you just walk around?
I walk around.
People have their schedules. So like, I'm gonna go to see Taboo doing here. I'm gonna go see the Radiators here, and they move. And some people just go with the flow.
Yeah,
those are two different human beings. I'm gonna go with the flow. I who are you gonna bump into?
You never know. Yeah, you never know who you're gonna see. It's like,
I don't like to be with a bunch of people. You just walk around and just flow. But some people need to have a schedule, need to be at the front row and hear the band.
Right, and they're gonna set up their seats and they're going to have a flag, and they're very meticulous like that. I'm definitely not like that.
That's free will.
Yeah, I guess so. But is it you are that way and therefore you can't? That's not free will. That's your personality, and of course that's what you're going to do, right? Yeah. Like if you were to put a person that is going to follow the calendar and go, "Nope, you're not using this. We're going with the flow today." They're going to be like, "No, we're not doing that." Like, or I'm going to have the worst time here. Right? So is the free will accepting the new reality and going, this is my new reality and I'm going to go with that. Right? But then is that free will? That's the question. That's what I'm saying. Like, this podcast was incredibly insightful, because you had this astrologist and physicist talking about free will, but really breaking it down into personality types, going, do we really? You know what I mean? Like, if I go home right now, right, I have a routine. Even if I didn't plan the routine, I didn't sit down.
Like, what's a routine? What's an element of your routine that you got to do every day?
I don't know if I gotta do it every day. It's just like, it just happens naturally, right? Like, I walk in, the dog greets me, but the dog greets me while I still have my bags on. I say hi to him, and then I put my bags down, and then I say hi to the family, you know what I mean? And then there's food, and you know what I mean? But sometimes there's not, but it's not really, I go with the flow, but the things that I do are the same. Huh. Yeah. You know what I mean? Unless I go specifically, this is what I'm going to specifically do something different going home today. You know what I mean? But why would I do that? Unless something happens externally that messes with my reality, I'm just going to go modus operandi. That's how I operate. So I'm going to continue my operating system until something comes into my life to either a person, an event, an accident or whatever, something happens and then it changes the direction of the routine. Somebody wants to have a meeting at the New Society, so now I'm going to go, but that's planned, right? But I'm still operating as Armando. I'm not putting on a mask and being somebody else.
Yep.
So that's the question, right? That is the question, is that do we really have control of our personalities like that? Because we're not going to change our personality. It's just not going to happen. We can try for a little bit, but we're going to go back to how we operate, right?
I think so. But we do grow.
Sure. Growth happens for sure. Like we learn.
But I'm fascinated by your thing about the idea of human beings and rhythms and rituals. And I think New Orleans is one of the best at a rhythm and ritual of how we connect.
Yes.
And I think the reason why New Orleans is great, and I think the challenge is New Orleans, but specifically what we're great at is we operate in a rhythm and ritual of how we sort of connect throughout the year, whether it's Mardi Gras season, festival season, hurricane season, Saint season, and you have your rituals. Oh, I meet on St. Charles Avenue at 2nd Street, on Saturday and eat crawfish with my friends. And you've done that for your whole life. So we are sort of auto-programmed in how we connect. Jazz Fest, you know where you're going to go and who you're going to sit with. That's something about that modus operandi of how we organize as a community, I think is a model of how humans connect.
Yeah.
Why we care so much about this city is the way we connect to each other and connect to the city. Most cities don't have that.
They don't.
And so there's something about how we connect and how we connect diversity and how Mardi Gras, we may not like each other, but everyone shows up. And for 2.5 weeks, and how much money we make? $500 million of economic impact because everyone shows up together. So there's something about your cadence you're talking about and that ritual. This is just a human thing.
Yeah. Jazz was born because of heat and because the slaves were allowed to have the day off on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So they went to Congo Square, and because of the heat, everybody was outside. Yep. And then they heard music, and then you had the Spanish influence, and then the French influence, and the African influence, and then all of a sudden, everybody's playing music together. And the thing is, it still happens today. Yep. That same thing, right?
Why does that not happen in other cities, though? What's different about? We can complain about this city, or we can say, what are we great at? What are we the greatest in the world at? No other cities create their own holiday like this.
No. Well, but you have this is New Orleans is very similar to Puerto Rico, Cuba, right? Which is that they have a more relaxed feel about them. Puerto Ricans and Cubans, and Dominicans have roots in tradition and how they do things. You know what I mean? So there is that similarity. Cool thing about New Orleans is that, because of the hub that New Orleans is and was because of the Mississippi and, it meeting with the Gulf and all of that, and just being a huge trading, space and is like a New York of its time. But the heat down here is a big culture impact.
What drives the cadence.
Yes. Oh yeah. 100%.
It drives the rhythms and rituals. But we're all programmed to it, right? When it gets hot, we go inside, have a cold drink. When it's cold, so how do you think? Back to the New Society. If you could actually identify 1,000 forward-thinking people, and the question is, how do you do that? So within this city, there are people who are forward-thinking. But they're all different. They're all different neighborhoods, different high schools, different professions. They're not one folks. They're not one group. How do you create a rhythm and a ritual around that group? How do you create new rhythms and rituals? And I think that's what we're looking to do with the New Society. How do you can create a collective of individuals who are not connected in any other way other than, they're crazy enough to be part of something new that's sort of, with a big idea. How do you connect diverse human beings together and create new rhythms and rituals together is something I think about.
But I think you guys do. You guys are most definitely in tune with the calendar, right? I've seen the calendar.
The calendar drives it.
Yeah, the calendar drives it.
The first thing we do is we put up all the New Orleans events first.
Yeah,
because that's hard coded.
You don't mess around with the events of New Orleans.
You got to know it. And the emotions during that time. And then we program the things that we're going to do around that. And then we bring in, those in New Society, their events.
Yeah.
And then how do we create new traditions? So we're having our season kickoff, the third one on September 12th. Could there be a new tradition where we, after the summer, we come together and we have another theme? What do we want to accomplish this year? And, could we, and it's a big if, get everybody just show up once? If you just show up one time in the year, here's what we're going to do. Let's just do so and set the tone for what we're going to do for the rest of the year.
Love that. That's great.
So we're doing that September 12th.
Awesome. I'll be there. So talk to me about the people that New Society sort of helps, like, and what need and fulfillment that you guys go, yeah, this is needed, and this is what we're solving.
Well, I don't like the word help. I don't know if we're helping. I mean, this is, I think what this is about, giving a place of folks that want to explore what's next. They want to meet new people, and they want to, the mantra is, what if it works? They want to be a spot where you can try stuff and it doesn't matter. So I think it's a place where you can explore new ideas, and you're not going to be bashed for that's a stupid idea, it's not going to work. Secondarily, you're around a bunch of other people who are exploring other things, exploring ideas. So you can connect with other groups who are starting new ideas. But thirdly, I just think there's a general, why I push back on the word help. It sort of energizes the optimist. I mean, this is a hard city to be optimistic sometimes.
I think the United States right now currently is a hard place.
So if we had a little spot where you could actually walk in and be optimistic.
Yeah.
And, I was in there, last week. I mean, you had, Patrick Comer, who is an entrepreneur who sold his company for over $1 billion, back in starting a new idea. He's back in the trenches pitching, his new idea.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
And there's another guy, Brent McCrossan, who's been a successful entrepreneur, back in the trenches with his idea. And everyone around is, even though how successful you are, you go back to it. I'm inspired by that, is that you just walk in and everybody's just trying stuff.
Yeah.
So that, I've seen that a couple of times where you aggregate folks who are all just hustling, trying new stuff. And one thing, it's like a bond. It's like it's like going to war together. And whether the ideas work or not is not as important as there was a moment in time where there's a group of people trying to do something big. So I think we tried to create that platform again for those who just want to. There's new technology out there, whether it's blockchain, Web3, AI. We can all talk about what's next, but now there's a group out there taking a swing. So I think we felt, or that after 25 years, we needed to be a physical home base. I think having it on St. Charles Avenue is very symbolic, and we can talk about the symbolism of having our own place on St. Charles Avenue during Mardi Gras. But where you can walk in and be inspired, learn something, meet somebody new, is the goal of it.
What is the symbolism
of
being on St. Charles?
Well, if you're during Mardi Gras, if you're, I'm just using Mardi Gras, it's all these big houses. So you need a big old house to live on the avenue. And those big houses are expensive. And those big houses might be in people's families for generations. And that's just not doable for some folks, specifically new people in town. So they're on the street, or they're, or they need to go find a bathroom, 5 blocks away. But what if the New Society could actually have a place on St. Charles Avenue, right on the avenue? It's just saying there's a place for everybody in the city. And the symbolism is that, you can be part of something and be on the grandest street in the city, and, everyone's equal. So I think it's just the city's ready for a street like St. Charles Avenue to have everybody on it.
I love it. You guys are done, right? Accepting people? I saw that, I think.
We have closed the membership for the New Society at this point, yes.
So nobody can join? Are you guys thinking about?
Well, there's two things in that. One is 1,008 is a lot. I mean that's that. To me, for us, it's time to stop and focus on engaging the current group. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't know maybe 80% of the folks who have joined. So it's a really remarkable group of people. So there's a chance to strengthen this group and strengthen the human connections and to inspire, and just to do that well. The way it was set up, and as you may know, that it's membership is not necessarily the right word, but you own a token.
Right.
And the token, you own that spot in the collective. You can sell that. So that is sellable. So if someone wants to join the new society, they must buy it from someone who currently owns it.
Gotcha.
So it's it's new and we're trying it out, but you own that spot. It's like owning the seat in the Superdome. And you own it. Now, if you don't want to go to Saints game anymore, you can sell it. So if someone wants to be part of the new society, they can buy it from somebody else. If someone doesn't want to join, not into it anymore, they can sell it. And they can sell it for wherever they want to sell it for. So our job is to build the value. So what is the value of the token? I don't know. I mean, no one's sold it yet, but if you can work out of there from 10 to 5 every day and you come to maybe 50 events a year and Mardi Gras, you get to hang out during Mardi Gras, what's it worth? I don't know. I have an opinion, but now we're going to see what the market says. So it's not exclusive. Anyone can buy. We hope people, people are excited to keep it. And what we're going to do in this next year is come up with new ideas, just to make it interesting and exciting. But 1,008 is enough. If you're asking why 1,008, which you didn't, it's just 504 times 2. So we did the first 504 founders, and then we did the rest 504. But there's a great group there.
That's awesome. I think it's great. It's a phenomenal space. It feels good being in there. The amount of people that I've met that are just quality people, amazing. It's a high vibrational place, and you're a high vibrational guy. So, I really appreciate you being on and sharing your story with us.
Well, my pleasure. I told you next one's on me because you got to come over to my place.
Yeah,
and
100%.
I got some questions for you. We might not go deep in the at will thing, but or the free will. But I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for not only being part of it, but also your energy and your vibration.
Thanks. Yeah. So we'll let people know where they can find your podcast.
Yeah.
And how they can follow you.
One is you can go to new.com, NIEUX.com, where it's our website. You'll see the podcasts. You go to Spotify, What's New, and you'll see all the podcasts we've done. We just did a really neat one with Brent McCrossan. He's launched a new tool that helps entrepreneurs validate their ideas. It's remarkable. I'm on Twitter, at TH Williamson, or you can go at New Society.
There you go. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, man.
All right. Thank you.
And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by LeDuc Entertainment. For all of your video production needs, podcasts, social media, we got you. Keep listening, keep watching. We'll see y'all next week.